Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Going Rounds podcast. I forgot to change my view, but yeah, that's my alternate view there. I was messing around with my secondary camera, so a little behind the scenes. If anybody was curious what my setup looks like, I got my drinks here, the old fashioned, some Lipton hard tea. Yeah, the phone. I totally forgot I was messing with that, so I didn't switch it back, but it's all good. You got to see a little behind the scenes. And if you notice, got a little change back here, something I've been talking about doing for a while now. Obviously, it's the same kind of stuff in the background, but I switched up my lights. I moved things around. The flag is now fully in view, which is better for me, I think. I feel like it looks better. And yeah, now when I have people in here, we got some posters that'll be in view instead of a blank wall. And I feel like the lights are a lot better. And actually, since I have my secondary view, I'll show you a little bit of some more. I got some extra lighting on the floor too. I had this light. I was gonna kind of use it for the wall and some extra lighting on the wall, but it doesn't look good on camera as far as I could tell. And I was having trouble getting it to stay, figuring out how I wanted it. So I figured instead of just letting it sit there like it had been for like a couple months, I decided to go ahead and put it down there and let it use it. It's an extra little pop for the room when I turn everything on. You know, gets the feeling going for me. I like the colors, the lighting in the background. You know, it's aesthetics. It's nice. It's cool. And when people walk in here too, it'll look good. So I like it. But yeah, the last show of 2023, I was contemplating not doing one this week because there wasn't a whole lot to cover. But there was some other stuff going on that I could be doing, but I'm going out of town for New Year's, so I gave my wife a trip for New Year's, for Christmas, I mean, to spend New Year's out of, on a little vacay. So we're doing that, and we're trying to catch up on a lot of stuff that we're a little behind on because it's a little bit short notice. Christmas it's a nice thing to give for Christmas, but when it's so close, we had less than a week after I told her that we were going. So everybody's trying to catch up and do things, myself included. But I was, we're just trying to do that. So I decided, even though I had other shit going on and stuff like that, she has other stuff going on. I'm kind of caught up, and I'm getting a break because I'm not working tomorrow, which is nice. And so I decided I'm going to go ahead and do the podcast. And this weekend was when I did all this changes back here, so I feel pretty good. I feel a bit accomplished. I finally did what I said I was going to do. I said I was going to change up the background and get it figured out, and I did. So I'm pretty happy about that. And let's hope that the new year brings more of that, more productivity, more creativeness. Creativity, I should have said. That sounds better, but whatever. Try to get better at talking. How about that? I do a podcast, and I hate how I talk sometimes. I get repetitive. I say a lot of the same things, and I say some things that I just absolutely hate to hear myself say. And I know everybody has their little tics and their little mannerisms, I guess, but mine annoy me and drive me crazy. So I hope they don't annoy you as much for anybody listening. But yeah, anybody that is listening, I appreciate it if you're watching and listening right now. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you like the video, it helps me, get into that algorithm. It helps me grow. Tell a friend, share it with somebody. Tell somebody about it, and that'll help as well. Get me some more viewers. That's my goal for next year, is to try to grow the channel. Maybe 50% of where it's at now. Give it a bit of more. We'll try for 25% in the first half of the year, maybe. And if I can get that growth, then maybe I can get the whole 50% growth by the end of the year. I don't want to overshoot it because then I'm just setting myself up for failure. And I'm trying to, just looking at where I'm at now and over a little over a year, I'm not gonna overstep. I will reach a little, but I'm not gonna overstep it, just because I'm just realistic like that. So help me grow the channel. Like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Everything you're supposed to do on YouTube, like everyone else tells you to do. And everyone tells you to do it because it does help the channel. It does help it grow. It does help, YouTube tell people that my show is liked and that they'll send it out to other people. That'd be cool. But anyway, and don't forget to like all my social media as well. Follow me everywhere. It's going on down there, and it will be all episode. It'll be either there or on the other side of the screen. Going Around's podcast everywhere: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, all that good stuff. It's Going Around's Pod on Twitter though, or X. But yeah, go follow me everywhere and like my stuff, please, and all that. I'd appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you that might be watching now, and thanks for the support. And I always thank everybody for the support, because I mean, you could just be like, he does a podcast, who gives a shit? But I do get the support, and I appreciate that, and I love you all for it. So thanks again. But yeah, this week we're gonna get into just a little recap of the big boxing match that happened last week, the Day of Reckoning that happened for Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia. A lot of big names on that card, some surprise endings in some of those fights, and yeah, we'll touch on that for a minute. But the big thing I wanted to do for this show, may not be as long as a show as usual, but I say that a lot, and then I get to rambling and I get into stuff, and sometimes it just drags on, and I wind up doing about the same amount of time that I always do. So who knows? We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it flows. But I wanted to do a 2023 year in review type thing. Everybody does their awards. That's the thing that everybody does. Best knockout, best submission, fighter of the year, most improved fighter, blah, 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 blah. Everybody does awards. I'm not going to do awards. Last year I did a bit of just a picking what I thought was like best KO, best submission, all that stuff. But I want to do something a little bit different. So I was just going to go through a little bit of a recap of the year, see where we're at from the beginning to the end. I felt like that was interesting for me, because being a big fan, that's something that sounds cool. Everybody's doing the awards, and almost everybody comes up with a kind of the same ending. It kind of makes sense, Islam Makhachev being the fighter of the year, the male fighter of the year, female fighter of the year, Alexa Grasso. I've heard it everywhere, and I get it, because that's why they got that award. They deserve it. So I like, what else am I going to do? What more can I add to that? Not much. Everything's been covered. All the big shows are doing all the awards. And then, fight of the year, KO of the year, those can vary depending on the person. But for the most part, you get the same answers all the way around. So I wanted, like I said, do a review of the year, a recap of all the pay-per-views. Can't do all the events because, that's a lot. That's every damn weekend for damn near every single month. Too much to do in one show. I could have maybe broke it up. That might be content for next week. I might do the review of the fight nights. That's not a bad idea. There we go. I'm getting creative during the show, and let me know what you think in the comments. The comments are open. The chat's open, I should say. Go comment. Tell me what you think. If you want me to do a bit of a recap of the fight nights after, next week, I will need a little bit of content anyway, and I can do that. If you're listening to this later, you can still go back and comment and let me know what you think. That might be something that would be cool to do. So for now, we're going to stick with the pay-per-views. Every pay-per-view event, I believe there was 14 events. Yeah, because there was 2 months that had 2 pay-per-views, March and July, which that happens sometimes. It's almost always 2 pay-per-views in July. But this year, March also had 2 pay-per-views. So yeah, we're going to cover all that. And I'm just going to do a quick breakdown of the biggest things that happened during the main card. And then I'll touch on a couple of undercard fights that were big during those pay-per-views. So And then, of course, we have a little bit of Conor news because with this big boxing match that happened, this big night of boxing, of course, the big names came out. Cristiano Ronaldo was out there, and Conor was all up on his nuts. And I say that because he was sitting next to him and wouldn't leave the poor dude alone. Now, it does look like they were chopping it up and having fun at one point in time, throughout the whole night, I guess. But, Conor was on another fucking level, and that's why it says that in the thumbnail. Conor's on another level because, once again, he's doing too much, bro. Doing too much. So we'll get into that too here in a minute. But yeah, that's what's coming up, and let's just get to it. That way I'm not sitting here rambling about it, and let's just be about it. Here we go. Let's start with combat sports news, of course. Riyadh season, day of reckoning for boxing. And of course, it had 3 really big names. Don't do this, camera. That's the next thing I gotta work on is my camera flashing out. I haven't been able to pinpoint why. I shouldn't even point it out. I should ignore it. I need to start ignoring it. But I hate it because I just don't want to see it. And for some reason, it happens randomly, and I'll go weeks without it happening, and then all of a sudden. This past week has been a week of it happening over and over, and it's killing me. But off subject, so let's get back on subject. Day of reckoning. Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin. Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. Dimitri Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. Those were the biggest fights. Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller was another big one. The rest of these fighters, I don't know a lot about. So you're going to have to excuse my absence with those fights. But I did want to cover the biggest ones. And the biggest ones were those 3 slash 4. Oh, I got the hiccups. It's time to take a drink. So, moving on to the actual fights. Let's see. I wanted to see. Now, there's literally nobody else I actually recognize in the rest of this card, which is sad. Maybe I need to pay a little more attention to boxing this year coming up. That might be a thing. Look into it a little more. But I do hear a lot of things on podcasts, people talking about it. I watch a lot of highlights and videos. So it's just boxing for me it doesn't grab me like MMA does. It's really hard for me to keep my interest. It's really hard for me to keep my attention and interest on boxing. It just doesn't do it for me. I'll watch some of these big fights, but I can't keep my attention on it. So I don't know. I just prefer MMA. But I like to cover it because, like I said, I do hear a lot about it, and I do hear a lot of people talking about it. And when those big events happen, I like to cover it because I like to talk about combat sports here, not just MMA. So that's what we do, and I'll just keep doing it. So I'm going to cover a little bit here. Let's get into the first fight. Well, again, Daniel Dubois defeated Jarrell Miller via 10th round TKO. It was a pretty good TKO as well. I watched the highlights of the ending. It was pretty good. Dubois, I think, was kind of getting manhandled a little bit there for a little while, and then came back and wound up with the TKO win in the 10th round. So congrats to him on that one. Dimitri Bivol also got a win via unanimous decision, but that puts him as the WBA light heavyweight champion. So he wins that title versus Lyndon Arthur. And, I didn't even realize this was for a title, but that's just my bad for not paying attention. But Bivol's a name that I hear all over the place, and I know that he's definitely one of those bigger names, one of those exciting fighters that people like to watch, and just a very, very talented boxer. So if I hear the name a lot, I start looking into it and realize, yeah, I see why people are talking. So Bivol winds up with his second belt, and gets that light heavyweight title as well. So good for him. It was a good fight from what I understand. Unanimous decision, so it went all 12 rounds. But 12 rounds? No. What? I don't even know. 1, 2, 5. What? I don't even know how many rounds. See, that's what's crazy with boxing. It could be anywhere from I think all 120. So that's 120. Try to do math here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 12 rounds. Yeah, 120 means unanimous decision means all the judges scored it for Bivol, and it says 120-107 for times 3. So yeah, 12 rounds. It's 10-9 rounds, 120, 12 times 10, 120. There you go. So 12 rounds. Sorry, I'm doing all the math out loud, trying to make sure I'm right about that. But yes, he defeated Lyndon Arthur, unanimous decision, and gets a second title. So good for Bivol. Congrats to him. Let's move on to the big upset of the night: Joseph Parker versus Deontay Wilder. Now I was reading about the fact that Joseph Parker gave Tyson Fury some fits in their fight, and gave him a really, really hard and competitive fight. So, I was expecting to see that him giving Wilder a run for his money as well. Just because if you're hanging with the Gypsy King, the pound for pound greatest fighter in the game right now, according to most people, then, Deontay Wilder's secondary right there, arguably. So with that, Joseph Parker comes in having given Tyson Fury a hell of a fight, thinking, okay, he's going to give Wilder a hell of a fight too. Well, he did more than that. He put Wilder on the ropes. He was throwing crazy punches and landing. Wilder, I don't believe, got wobbled, or maybe he got wobbled. I don't think he got dropped. But Joseph Parker pulls out the upset with the unanimous decision win in the heavyweight division, and defeats Deontay Wilder, which is crazy because Wilder and Anthony Joshua, who's the next fight I'm about to talk about, had already were in talks and had kind of signed for a 2-fight contract to fight after this. So now with Wilder losing, does that take a little spark away from that? You know what I mean? I mean, Anthony Joshua's lost before too, but with Wilder, they could have catapulted that fight into way more of a event, of a popular event, I guess way more attention could have been paid to it had Wilder come out with a big knockout win, or just a very impressive dominant win over Joseph Parker. Instead, he got dominated and he lost via unanimous decision to Joseph Parker. So, but Anthony Joshua comes up with a big win of his own, and winds up stopping Otto Wallin, yeah, via TKO in the 5th round. So Anthony Joshua did his part, but Deontay Wilder did not. And let's see what Anthony Joshua had to say about it. Man, I just had this. Broke his nose. I can't find what he said, but that's all right. It's just Anthony Joshua with the big win, and it's always good to see these big names win like this. Like I said, it could have turned into something much more had Deontay Wilder gotten the win as well in impressive fashion. But it was a tough one for him. He got a decision loss. I mean, it's not like he got knocked out. He didn't get TKO'd, but it happens. So Anthony Joshua being impressive, Deontay Wilder getting upset by Joseph Parker, and Bivol winning a title and Dubois showing some heart and fighting some adversary. No. Oh my God, I can't talk today. What the fuck is wrong with me? Adversity. Yeah, maybe that did say that right. What the hell? Why did I? Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. He fought through a hard fight, and instead of giving up and giving in, he actually came out with a win. So, yeah, good night of fights for boxing. Riyadh season brings a lot of big fights, a lot of big names, and they bring the stars out. And with those stars, you get Conor McGregor, of course. And Conor's just being intense overall, and just getting in everybody's ear everywhere he goes. And they roll out the red carpet, they bring out these big guys, these big names, this big money. And of course, Conor is not shy. Conor is a social butterfly, to say the least. And this man will talk your fucking ear off if he's interested in talking to you. Point proven with that picture. Look at Ronaldo's face. It's hilarious. But I mean, Ronaldo has entertained Conor for a long time, as far as his antics and talking to him and kind of mixing it up with him. So it's not like he's annoyed, but I think he's more maybe feeling uncomfortable because in this picture, Conor's talking to the gentleman that's sitting next to Ronaldo, who I believe has a big part in Riyadh season, in Saudi Arabia with all of the organizations that you know they deal with in combat sports over there. So of course Conor is talking and people listen because it's Conor McGregor. But man, this boy is on another fucking level, and I'm about to prove it. Gotta watch his eyes. Watch his eyes in this video I'm about to play. I mean, I like to have a drink, you know what I'm saying? But this man is doing a lot. Let's watch and see what I'm talking about here. Let's play it right now. And try to make out what the fuck he's saying, because it is very hard. I might let it play a second time just to see if we can make out some of these words. The guy that's interviewing him, though, I'm not exactly sure who he is, but holy shit, this guy doesn't make it any better, because he's just rambling to shit too. So I don't know if these guys, you know, took a little quick break in the powder room together, but they're both fucking just way up here, and they need to calm down. Let's go.
Always have been, always will be.
Get me
I
back
always.
in there and
That's what I was going to ask you.
Get the Mac back
Against
in
who?
there.
Against who, though?
The Mac has
Talking
loads
for
to
each other.
offer and loads to deliver.
Against who?
They're talking Manny. I don't give a.
Okay, so he said right there they're talking Manny, which means he's talking to people out there, and they're talking about him getting back into the boxing ring and boxing Manny Pacquiao. Yes, you heard that right. That's what they're talking about. Look at Conor with the fist up, talking the whole time with the fist up. You'll see him in a minute. He looks at it, and it's like he's talking to his fist. It's insane. Let's go.
Talking Manny here in Saudi. The lads in the UFC aren't really talking any. So the lads here are talking Manny. The UFC aren't talking any. So I'm sitting here, I'm sitting here the usual, Gareth. You know.
He's cussing on a live broadcast.
I hate to apologise for you because you're Conor McGregor, but I have to apologise for the language. We're live on it.
Okay, what the fuck did he just do there? The dude saying, I need to apologize because we're on live television, and I hate to apologize for you because you're Conor McGregor, but I have to apologize for the language. He looks at his fist and he's like talking to it, and now he's doing that. Like, this boy, whoo, he's got to calm down.
But that's fine. Are you talking about boxing then, rather than mixed martial arts?
I'm talking about give me something.
want to
You know what I'm
fight?
saying? I'm supposed to be back in April. It's supposed to be December.
Can I apologise as well?
So he's saying it's supposed to be back in April, supposed to be December. So now he's talking about the UFC and when he was supposed to fight. But I thought it was him keeping the fights from happening, right? Because we were waiting for him to get back in the testing pool. We're waiting for him to fucking do this and do that, waiting and waiting. The testing pool was the thing. USADA may not be around after the end of this month, but it was around then, and he needed 6 months. So how you going to fight in April? How you going to fight in December if you don't get in the fucking testing pool? Those are the rules, motherfucker. What are you doing? What are you doing? And now what are you saying? So let's finish.
Never the interim champion.
They've never treated anyone. They've never treated anyone. No one's ever been treated. For all the figures we've brought in this game, I sell more than all of them combined, yeah? I sell more than every one of them combined. No one...
Who? What? What the fuck is he saying? Does anybody know? Do you guys know? Do you know what the fuck he's saying? I don't know what he's saying. I don't know.
In the history of the fight games, ever been treated the way we're getting treated at this minute, yeah? Through what I came through, through what I bring. The shoot up in floodgates for me, yeah? And I'm waiting.
There he goes with the fist again.
And I'm waiting. My patience is wearing thin on me waiting, yeah?
Always have been, always will.
His patience are wearing thin. I'm assuming he's speaking about the UFC. His patience are wearing thin. He's looking at trying to get into boxing. He wants to fight Manny Pacquiao. People are talking to him about it. I know those sheiks or those fucking whatever those guys are, those big money motherfuckers out there in Saudi Arabia that are running this shit, that are the investors in Riyadh season, bringing all the stars and bringing all the big fights. They want Conor McGregor and Manny Pacquiao. Fuck yeah. That's just money. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That's all they see. Money, motherfucking money. So, of course, Conor's going to entertain the shit out of that because he sees the same thing. Money, and he wants to fight. So they want to give it to him. He's going to take that shit. Let me see if we can decipher any more of this. This started over again right now. I want to see if I can make out whatever the fuck he might be saying here.
Get me back in there,
I was going to ask you.
Get the Mac back in there.
Get the Mac back in there.
Against who, though?
The Mac has loads to offer and loads to deliver.
The Mac has loads to offer and loads to deliver. So now he's speaking about himself in the third person. So, whew.
They're talking Manny. I don't give up. They're talking Manny here in Saudi.
They're talking Manny here in Saudi.
The lads in the UFC aren't really talking anything.
The lads in the UFC aren't really talking about anything.
So the lads here are talking Manny. The UFC aren't talking any. So I'm sitting here, I'm sitting here the usual, Gareth. You know.
And here comes the weird talking to the fist.
I hate to apologise for you because you're Conor McGregor, but I have to apologise for the language. We're live on air.
Fucking stop cussing on live air. Fuck. Shit. Damn it. Like, I would be, wouldn't you think I'm fucking crazy if you saw me doing that? Stop fucking up on the podcast. God damn it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with Conor?
But that's fine. Are you talking about boxing then rather than mixed martial arts?
I'm talking about give me something, you know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to be back in April. It's supposed to be December.
Can I apologise as well?
And why is this guy? Can I apologize? He's apologizing for him never being the interim. What the fuck is he talking about?
Never the interim champion.
You were never the interim champion. What does that mean? Is that a callback to like something he said? Maybe he said he was an interim champion or something. Why is this guy throwing in weird shit in the middle of the crazy ramblings of Conor McGregor? Maybe he felt out of place and wanted to fit in, or maybe he was in the bathroom with him beforehand and they were having some fun with party favors or some sort. I don't know. This is a weird fucking video.
They've never treated anyone. They've never treated anyone. No one's ever been treated. For all the figures we've brought in this game, I sell more than all of them combined, yeah? I sell more than every one of them combined.
Oh, he sells more than all of them combined. He says they've never treated anyone. They've never treated anyone. Never treated anyone what? What are you saying? Fucking finish your thought. I know I'll stop in the middle of one thought and jump to another sometimes, but damn, this is on another level.
No one in the history of the fight games ever been treated the way we're getting treated at this minute.
No one in the fight game has ever been treated the way getting treated in this fight. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, through what I came through, through what I bring. The shoot up in floodgates for me, yeah? And I'm waiting.
They should open the floodgates for me. Okay, we get it. We know what he says at the end. Fucking A, Conor. Oh my God. That's exhausting. Just listening to that is fucking exhausting. But here he is, chopping it up with Cristiano Ronaldo. Fucking comparing watches. I saw some fucking meme on Instagram or something that was like Conor's watch is like 130 million or some shit, and then Ronaldo's is like 60 or 1,000. Was it 1,000? I think it was 1,000. It's like 100, not million. 130,000 is like what Conor's watch is worth, and Ronaldo's watch is like 63,000 or some shit like that. I don't remember exactly. Fucking crazy. Regardless, too much money. Too much money. Well, these fucking guys, But see, so now you know Ronaldo was enjoying himself as well. They were chopping it up, having fun, talking, laughing, blah blah blah. We get it. Conor though, Conor has a problem. And maybe that's why he hasn't fought, because people probably know this, and people are probably wondering when he's going to show signs of cleaning it up. Maybe that's why they haven't booked him for a fight yet. If it's true that he's waiting on the UFC, maybe the UFC sees something that everyone else doesn't see, or knows something that everyone else doesn't know. Maybe somebody close to Conor is holding him back because they know that he's not himself, because he can't clean it up. I don't know what else to say. I can be straight up here and say he's on coke, he's coked out, but allegedly. That's what I'll say. But this is what it seems like. Everyone's basically saying it and talking about it. His eyes are you can see it in the eyes. Something is going on, and he's being crazy. So I hope he cleans it up soon. I hope he gets back in there. Still haven't announced a main event for UFC 300. There's been other announcements, other big fights, but nothing big enough to be the main event. They have not named anything the main event yet. So we'll see. We'll see. There's talks of McGregor waiting for the Nate Diaz trilogy. He said it himself. It's going to happen. There's rumors that Diaz is trying to get in on 300, or they're trying to get him in on 300. So will the trilogy happen then? Who knows? But Chandler is still waiting. Chandler's still waiting. And we've seen the UFC not be nice to guys that wait. But they want to make that fight too. So maybe it's not big enough for them. Maybe that's why they're thinking, fuck it. You know, if Conor wants to wait and do something else, then we'll entertain it. But, you know, as far as Chandler goes, Chandler thinks that everyone else is an easier fight for McGregor. Like, if Conor's waiting for Nate, if Conor's waiting for, who else did he say? He named off somebody else. But, yeah, if he's waiting for these guys, he thinks it's an easier fight. Who knows what the fuck's happening? You know, Conor's rambling, saying that it's the UFC holding it up. So what's the truth here? I don't know. I would like to know. It'd be nice to know, and it'd be nice to get a date as to when he's going to come back, if he's ever going to come back. If he's not going to come back, then don't fucking come back. Just say it. But at this point, I'm going to stop caring. And other people might too, and that's something, you know, it's only highly anticipated for so long. You know, he's coming off a bad injury with the leg. You know, he snapped the leg. That's a big thing. So he's got to come, you know, make sure he's 1,000% on that one. And I get it, because guys come back too early sometimes. But just fucking do something already. Like, we want to see you in there, win or lose. But it's not going to happen if you can't clean up. If you can't clean it up, stop doing the juice. Stop doing the powder. And start doing the workouts. Start doing the training. And get serious. And negotiate. Make the fucking fight. Let's go. But that's all I got to say about Conor. Let's move on to the year in review, the recap of all the pay-per-views for the year. Conor on that Jamba Juice. You damn right, Mason. Mason Herring in the chat talking about Conor being on that Jamba Juice. He's on a couple different things. Let's just hope that he fucking figures it out, and the UFC needs to put pressure on his ass. If they're waiting on him, put that pressure on it. If he's waiting on them, then start demanding. You're the biggest name in the UFC, right? You bring in the most money, right? Pull that lever, pull that fucking string, pull everything you got, get that shit to happen. But UFC 2023, lots of great fights. Conor not involved in any of them. But again, he was with that leg injury, you know. The Ultimate Fighter, he was involved with that. So after that, they were supposed to have a fight, him and Chandler, after coaching the Ultimate Fighter. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. So now we're still waiting to see what happens. Still waiting to see if Conor's going to fight. But when it comes to the events that happened this year, there's some pretty big events, and there was a lot of them. So we had 14 events overall. That's one event a month, except for March and July. There was two events in both of those months. And yeah, we had change of hands with titles. We had retirements galore this year. We had crazy upsets. We had just exciting fights as well. Great celebrations. Israel Adesanya with the probably the best celebration of all. But it was a fun year. It was a good year, and there was a lot of great fight cards. There was some mixed in there that were not so great, but that happens. You know, there's never an entire year of great fight cards, but what can I say? It was fun. It was nice. I did a watch party for a lot of these, and those were fun as well. And I'll continue with the watch parties because especially like when Izzy knocked out Alex Pereira, that was so fun to watch happen live with other people and just celebrate and get excited. And the big reaction on the podcast is just so much fun. And it's good content, and it gives me stuff. I made a TikTok out of it. It was fun. And I want more. I want more that way. We didn't get too many of those happening over the past few. We had big knockouts, but just not the big reaction knockouts because no one was anticipating those big knockouts happening. So when it comes down to it, you know, the reactions just didn't come, but they were great fights and big knockouts. So I'm going to just start from the beginning here, and I'm not going to go long on every one, but I am going to, you know, go through every month and just not break down, but touch on the fights that happened, the notable fights that happened throughout each card. So as we do that, so you can follow along, we got starting from January, UFC 283, Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill for the vacant light heavyweight title. And then we had Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno for part 4, the quadrilogy for the what were they? Flyweight? Yeah, flyweight title. And you know, both these guys have been title holders and they've exchanged the belt back and forth. But this was the final fight between those two. And in the undercard of this fight, man, there was some great. One of the biggest knockouts of the year happened right away in this first pay-per-view event. Bonfim versus Terrence McKinney. Bonfim with that crazy flying knee KO. That shit was nuts. And that was one of the biggest KOs. And I saw that up for the award for the best KO of the year. And I mean, I don't know like how many people actually picked that one, but that was a crazy knockout. Let's see other notables. Oh, Shogun lost. Shogun fought and lost on this card, and this was when he retired. So this was Mauricio Shogun, who was final fight of the year. I mean, final fight of his career, and unfortunately went out on a loss in a TKO loss to Ihor Pretoria. So that was sad to see. I mean, Shogun's a legend, and you know, I'll give it up for Shogun because he's been through all of the crazy ups and downs of this sport, and he is a fucking legend. So watching him walk away after I watched him come up and, you know, go on big runs and big streaks and then the downsides of everything, watching him get old. But I mean, me getting involved in the, you know, watching this sport, Shogun was always one of the big names that everyone would mention when you would talk about the UFC and MMA. So hopefully Shogun's doing well in retirement now that it's almost a year since his retirement. And hopefully he's not one of those guys that feels the need to come back because, you know, the way he went out, that needs to be it. But yeah, Ismael Bonfim versus Terrence McKinney. Go back and check that fight out. The flying knee KO by Bonfim. Nasty and entertaining as hell. So that was the notables from the undercard. We had Johnny Walker versus Paul Craig, and this was I lost my round 1 KO. TKO by punches. for Johnny Walker against Paul Craig. Paul Craig is no punk at all. He's a badass, and for Johnny Walker to come out looking like the Johnny Walker of old, because he, he's kind of had some decision wins and stuff like that coming up to this one, but he kind of wobbled Craig. Craig went down for a kind of a takedown, and Walker just hammer fist from hell. Paul Craig's holding on to one leg. He's just hammer fisting the fuck out of the side of his head, and that was it. TKO for Johnny Walker. We had Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny. That was a submission win by arm triangle for Gilbert Burns, which, he just dominated in the grappling. Dominated in the grappling when it comes down to it. Neil Magny just didn't have an answer for that grappling, and he just didn't know what to do with it. Finds himself in an arm triangle choke and gets submitted in the first round, actually. So that it didn't take long. A lot of people get upset with the grappling and the stuff like that, but it didn't take long for him to go ahead and sink in that sub. So then we had Figueiredo versus Moreno, part 4. This was a TKO stoppage for Moreno due to that crazy eye. He blew up Figgy's eye so bad that it closed shut. They couldn't even they couldn't even force it open. So of course the doctor called it. That was it. Figgy gets stopped in the 3rd round. It was in between the 3rd and 4th round. They were waiting to start the 4th round, and the doctor wouldn't let it go, and for good reason, because that eye was shut, and I don't know how he could have seen out of it whatsoever. So Moreno got the belt, retained the belt, I believe, because I think he had it before that. And unfortunately for Figueiredo, he did not finish that fight. He wound up losing, and now he has moved up a weight class and doing fairly well so far. I think he's only had one fight there, but so then we move on to the main event, which was Jamal Hill versus Glover Teixeira in this fucking crazy light heavyweight division, because what can I say? With John Jones leaving the division, the change of hands with the title is just crazy. And so this was for the vacant lightweight title. Jamal Hill gets the win, a unanimous decision. He busted up Glover. Glover couldn't keep up with Jamal. A lot of people thought Jamal Hill didn't have the experience. He had the power and the heavy hands in order to possibly knock out Glover, and Glover's chin hadn't really held up much before this, but Glover, being who he is with the experience, that everyone thought for sure Glover was going to be able to get that belt back, and unfortunately he wasn't able to, and this wound up retiring Glover as well. So I believe this was Glover's last fight. For sure, I actually made a note of that. Glover retired this night, so him and Shogun, 2 legends of the fight game, retired in one night. Started a whole massive outbring of retiring fighters this year, basically. But unfortunately, Jamal Hill was never able to defend that belt because he got hurt. He ruptured his Achilles tendon and had to vacate the belt. So that happened later on down the road. But as far as 283, that was a wrap on that one. And then we move on to February with UFC 284. This was Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski, the first fight they had this year, where Volk moves up in weight to challenge Makhachev. And then you had Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett, which, Yair, being who he is with the crazy, long limbs of his, the kicks, the strikes overall, but then Josh Emmett with his insane power, which was on showcase in this past month's pay-per-view against Bryce Mitchell. We'll hit on that, of course, but not too much happening in the undercard for this fight. I believe this one happened in Dubai, maybe? No, this was in Australia. That's right, because Volkanovski was trying to win the belt, become a double champ at home. But for some reason, they didn't have too many big names on the undercard of this fight. Jack Jenkins won unanimous decision. Jamie Malarkey, unanimous decision. That was the problem. There was a lot of decisions happening in this fight. Modestas Bukauskas, unanimous decision win over Tyson Pedro. So, and everyone was going for Pedro, being that it was in Australia. So, not too much going on the undercard here. But then we move. Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menefield, majority draw. It was kind of a lackluster fight for the most part. And they'll later down the road actually wind up rematching. So that was the first fight of the main card. Then we moved into finally some really good, exciting stuff. In the first round, we get a big walk-off KO by Justin Tafa over Parker Porter. So Parker Porter, man, that poor guy, he suffered a few big losses, and this was one of the biggest. And unfortunately for him, he got to be in the highlight reel of Justin Tafa. Tafa's a bad motherfucker, and he put it all on display at home or near his home. So that was a big one. And then we had Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown. So JDM with a crazy submission in round one. Crazy round. I thought for sure it was going to be TKO loss, Randy Brown. But instead, he battled the ground and pound, but wound up falling right into a rear naked choke. And JDM gets a big win to start off the year in the welterweight division. And obviously, Jack Della Maddalena is one of those guys that unfortunately has been up and down with canceled fights. Hasn't really had the growth this year that everyone thought he would have. But, he's still in the mix for sure. So you still got to keep an eye out for him. And he's a great fighter. And seems to be in exciting fights almost always. So that's someone you still got to keep an eye out for in that welterweight division. Then we had Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. So, of course, I was thinking, shit, Josh Emmett might Yair out into another realm like he has other people. But Yair got a submission triangle choke in the second round over Josh Emmett. And, Yair survived big punches, but was able to sink in that triangle and get a win in round two in the featherweight division. Then we get to the main event. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Like I said, this was the first fight between them two, with Volk going up in weight to the lightweight division from the featherweight division and trying to become a double champ because obviously, he's still the champ to this day of the featherweight division. But, yeah, he is. Yeah. Sorry. He's fighting Ilya Topuria in February. So, yeah, he's definitely still the champ, and that should be a good fight at all. But he challenges Makhachev, and, it was a competitive fight. It wasn't as crazy big and exciting as we thought it might be, but Volk showed again that he's a beast when it comes to submission defense. He survived that crazy choke from Brian Ortega that everyone thought for sure Brian was gonna lock it up, and it looked like it was locked up, and Volk found a way out and suffered through it all, made his way to getting out of it, and then continued for a big win against Brian Ortega. And again, same thing, survived the big choke against Islam, sitting back with his thumbs up. It was it was the end of the round, so he did kind of get, he got to take a little bit there, but good, and he showed heart, and it was a good fight for him. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to gain that double champ status in his home home field advantage there. But it was a decent fight. Overall the card wasn't the greatest, but it was a pretty good card. Then we move on to UFC 285, one of the biggest anticipated fights of the year, in a while, because of course it's the return of Jon Jones. And as soon as that was announced, everyone was hyped, ready, waiting, and of course we're thinking, shit, we're gonna finally get to see Jon Jones in there. Big fight, should be fun. Everyone was hoping to be Francis, but then the Francis Ngannou stuff happened, and unfortunately Francis didn't re-sign with the UFC, to the PFL, and signed for a boxing match against Tyson Fury. So we didn't get to see Jon Jones returning to fight Francis Ngannou, who was the title holder in the heavyweight division. So Jones finally makes his way up to the heavyweight division. We're thinking gigantic, massive fight here with Francis Ngannou, one of the hardest hitters, one of the biggest athletes in the sport, most just feared fighters because of his power, because of his speed, his strength, everything. And we're thinking Jon Jones is definitely going to give him a hell of a fight. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So with that, we had the second most athletic fighter in the heavyweight division going up against John Jones, which, you know, you would think, okay, this is definitely going to be a good one. Cyril Gane, who gave Francis a decent fight, but Francis found some wrestling, found some grappling somewhere, and he wrestled and grappled the shit out of Cyril and made him look bad. So unfortunately, Cyril wasn't able to get the title, and if he would have been fighting John Jones for the title, instead fighting for the vacant title, and it winds up being a pretty fast fight. So let's see what else happened in this fight. We had in the undercard, we had Ian Gary. Let's see, I'm trying to do two things at once here. We had Ian Gary in the undercard, you know, making his way up, making a splash in the fight game and in the UFC. But he was fighting against Kenan Song and winds up getting a third round win by TKO. And then we also had, you know, and Ian Gary's been in the news lately because of the stuff going on with his wife. He had to cancel his fight after all of the crazy drama going on with his wife. He cancels his fight and winds up not fighting this past month. So he's been in the news a lot. It was supposed to be a big fight against Vicente Luque, and he doesn't wind up following through because of pneumonia. And then another person in the news, Dricus du Plessis, DDP fighting Derek Brunson, which I believe was Brunson's last fight in the UFC before he moved over to PFL. DDP gets a TKO by corner stoppage in the second round over Brunson. Then we move into the main event. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We had Cody Garbrandt in the undercard as well, looking good against Trevin Jones with that unanimous decision. Then we get Bo Nickel with a big win over Jimmy Pickett. Now, it was a bit controversial, unfortunately, because it looked like Bo Nickel kind of had a low blow nut shot on Jamie Pickett, and then winds up just mauling him, grappling him. Crazy kind of transitions to get himself into position to get a rear naked choke. Oh, I'm sorry, an arm triangle choke in round one. So that was a pretty quick fight for Bo Nickel, but showing improving what he can do and how good he is. Then we had Mateusz Gamrot versus Jalen Turner. Gamrot with a split decision win over Turner. Shavkat Rakhmonov, who again in the news lately because he fought this past month with a win over Wonderboy. He was fighting Jeff Neal and got that crazy one arm like rear naked choke submission. It looked like a kid in a playground just choking out his buddy. But yeah, one arm submission, showed his strength, showed his talent, showed his everything that he could do. Shavkat is 18-0 currently, so he's still on that path. He didn't look in this past fight, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Then we get to the co-main event. Alexa Grasso, crazy upset versus Valentina Shevchenko. This was an exciting fucking fight. Nobody could believe their eyes. Shevchenko looks untouchable, but her previous fight before this one, she finally looked a bit human, and then comes in against Alexa Grasso. Nobody gave Grasso a chance. You know, they said great boxing, good submissions, but no one thought that it could be done, and then winds up submitting Valentina Shevchenko in the fourth round, submission by face crank. If you remember, Valentina's face looked like she had a sunburn across her face because of how discolored it was from the pressure that Grasso put on that chin, that she was cranking down on her chin and her face, and Valentina had to tap. Crazy upset submission win by Alexa Grasso, the only fight she had this year, but still won awards for being the female fighter of the year just for that. And then we get to the main event, John Jones versus Cyril Gane. Highly anticipated fight. Everyone's been waiting for John Jones to come in and finally fight again. Everyone's hoping for that Francis Ngannou fight. Doesn't happen. Winds up being Cyril Gane, and winds up being a first round guillotine submission by John Jones. He just made Cyril look like he was just a beginner. Looked like a novice. 2 minutes in the first round, done, over with, choked him out, walked away, leaving Cyril Gane with his hand over his head like the most disappointed kid in his life. He just lost his lunch money. His mom's gonna hate him. His mom's gonna smack him. His dad's upset. That's the way it looked. It was crazy. Very fast fight, But, you know, after the war that we saw with Shevchenko and Grasso and it going to the 4th round, and then the upset, the crazy upset that Grasso gets that submission over Shevchenko, that was so exciting that everyone was hyped. And then you get this quick finish by John Jones. No one could believe it, but it was fun. So that was a great event. That was a great night of fights for the most part. And, you know, a lot of fun shit and a lot of just crazy fights, I guess you can say. Exciting, entertaining fights. Moving on to 286, UFC 86. This was the first fight in March. Oh, I'm sorry. John Jones was the first fight in March. So this was the second fight in March. They happened like within 2 weeks of each other. Not a whole lot going on in the undercard for the most part. This wasn't one of the best cards. Veronica Hardy gets a win over Juliana Miller, who was the previous Ultimate Fighter champion. Unanimous decision there. Jai Herbert and Ludovic Klein, majority draw. Joanne Wood in her last UFC fight, I believe, against Luana Carolina. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't her last fight. She fought once again after this, I think. But, no, not Joanne Wood, still in the UFC. Isn't she? I don't remember. Who cares? Split decision win for Joanne Wood. Jake Hadley, Malcolm Gordon. Hadley, TKO by punches. Lerone Murphy over Gabriel Santos, submission. Mohamed Mukayev. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a decision. Mohamed Mukayev over Rafael Filio, submission by neck crank. Yeah, and that was really it on the undercard. Jack Shore over Makwan Mirikani. That was a submission by rear naked choke in the 2nd round. Then we get to the main card. Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. Unanimous decision win for Vettori. Nothing too crazy there. Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill. Unanimous decision win for Maia. Lots of decisions in this card. But, you know, there's some pretty decent fights, some pretty fun fights. Now we're getting into them. Gunnar Nelson versus Brian Barberena. Gunnar Nelson with a big submission win by armbar over Brian Barberena, which I expected nothing less. Barberena is a great fighter, but he's not as technical and doesn't have everything, all the skills to fight off a crazy submission artist like Gunnar Nelson, jiu-jitsu guy that is a master. And Gunnar's great at what he does and pulls off that armbar submission in the 1st round over Brian Barberena. And we have a candidate for fight of the year, Justin Gaethje's Fiziev. This was a crazy fucking fight, man. Gaethje, of course, is always involved in a crazy high-paced, high-action, high-intensity fight, and there's always blood. There's always big fucking strikes, and just it's always a war with Justin Gaethje, and he definitely did that in this fight. And even though he got a majority decision win, Fiziev was busted up. It was a fucking crazy fight. It was fun. And, you know, I expect nothing less with Gaethje, and Gaethje definitely pulled it off. Then we had the second fight of Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. This was a majority decision win for Leon Edwards, proving that it wasn't a fluke. His head kick knockout over Usman, the previous fight, was, you know, it looked like a fluke because he was losing the entire 5 rounds until the last minute of the 5th round, gets that head kick knockout, and winds up winning the title. And then Kamaru just wasn't the same after that. He comes back and just didn't know what to do with Leon. Maybe he was shy of that head kick because of that head kick. Maybe he was gun shy and worried about that head kick because that was a nasty knockout, something he hadn't faced before. So for Leon to get that crazy upset win in the fashion that he did, you know, for Kamaru to come back and get the immediate rematch and not do well, it sucks, man. But that's the game. So that was a big win for Leon. I think the fight of that card for sure was that Gaethje-Fiziev fight. And of course, a lot of people, again, gave the award for fight of the year to that fight. If not, it was definitely an honorable mention or second place. Now we get to one of the biggest knockouts of the year. Definitely a lot of people's knock of the year. Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Adesanya coming back with that immediate rematch and getting the crazy knockout win. The big celebration. On the undercard that we had, a couple fights, I think. Lupi Godinez, split decision win over Cynthia Calvillo. Joe Pyfer, who's making a name for himself and just continuously winning, getting a big win over Gerald Mearshart, TKO by punches in the first round. And then Kelvin Gastelum with a good win, unanimous decision win over Chris Curtis. And that rounds out the undercard of that fight. We had the 18-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. versus Christian Rodriguez at a catchweight, 137-pound catchweight fight. And Rodriguez made Rosas look bad, unfortunately. His Rosas was looking good before this, and then he comes out and loses a unanimous decision to Christian Rodriguez. Next fight on that card was Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Kevin Holland gets a big win by KO in the third round over Ponzinibbio. That was a great fight. Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. TKO by punches in the first round. Rob Font gets a big win over Yanez. Looking good in that fight. And moved on to continue to have a good year for Rob Font, if I remember correctly. Then we get Gilbert Burns again a couple months from his last fight where he fought. Let's see, who did he fight? Gilbert Burns fought in the 283. So in January he had fought against Neil Magny and got the sub in the first round. And now we see now we're at 287. Now we get Burns versus Masvidal. This was Masvidal's last fight in the UFC. Retires on a loss, unanimous decision, lost to Gilbert Burns, which, you know, it's not like he lost some scrub or anything like that, but Masvidal just didn't look well in this fight. Didn't look good. It was time for him to hang it up, and he did. Like I said, a lot of retirements this year. A lot of big name retirements too. But then we get to the big main event, Izzy versus Alex Pereira. You know, Pereira's the champ. Izzy's coming back to try to get his belt back, and he does in the second round. KO by punches. This was insane. Fucking, you know, Izzy gets put back in the position that he got knocked out in. That Alex put him in that position. Alex is throwing the kicks, throwing the punches, pressing him up against the cage, and winds up looking like he's about to get the same kind of end to the fight that he got in the first one. And Izzy, out of nowhere, counters, right hook, fucking to the chin, bam, done, knocks him out cold, and then does the craziest celebration that so many people have done. The best edits I've seen ever, with Izzy pulling out the arrows with the bow and shooting 3 arrows into fucking Alex, and then going and trolling his fucking son, who's crying because his dad just got knocked out. But this kid trolled Izzy when Izzy got knocked out in the kickboxing match that they had. Stands next to Izzy as his dad's getting his hand raised, and just falls over like he just got knocked out the way that Izzy did. Izzy goes to the cage, points at the kid, and does it. I was like, wow. And he said, I'm fucking petty, bro. But he showed it then. But let me tell you, that was one of the best celebrations I've ever seen. It was fucking intense. Izzy, to be in the state of mind after getting a big win like that, to just do what he did, was fucking nuts. And I wish we could have seen more of it. But unfortunately, he was not able to retain that belt. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. But that does it for UFC 287. Now we get to UFC 288 that happened in May. And this was oh shit, did I really? How do you feel about Cristiano Ronaldo being the new strength and conditioning trainer for Deontay Wilder? Is he really? I didn't hear that. Huh. Did I just pushed the wrong button? Oh crap. Now I'm getting myself all mixed up here. Let me fix my screw ups. There we go. All right. Did I skip one? I might have skipped one. Oh shit, I did skip one. If Ronaldo's really the trainer for Deontay Wilder, though, I I don't know how to feel about that one. Strength and conditioning, that's a big one. Not sure how to feel about that one, but if that's true, that's interesting. We'll see what that does for Deontay. I mean, I'm sure Ronaldo is good with the conditioning. I don't know about the strength and conditioning. I guess usually cardio based. Could be good for Deontay, but I haven't heard that. So here we go with 288. Happened in May. Undercard, we had Matt Frivola. Matt Frivola with a big round 1 KO over, man, I lost my spot here. Over Drew Dober. That was a big win for Frivola because Drew Dober's no joke. He's a badass fighter. He's a great fighter in the lightweight division, and Frivola just came in and bulldozed him. First round, TKO by punches. Great win for Frivola. In the main card, we had Charles Jourdain versus Kron Gracie in that weird fucking fight where Kron, whatever you want to call it. Gracie, though, looking like he did not know how to do MMA. He just wanted to butt scoot on the ground and pull guard and as much as possible, and it just was not working for him. Charles Jourdain didn't know what to do with it. I felt bad for him because, you know, I'm sure he wanted it to be a great fight, and instead just couldn't do much with what Kron Gracie was doing. It was almost embarrassing, man. I kind of felt bad for Jourdain, but I felt bad for Kron as well because it was just one of those things. Still waiting on John Jones versus Francis. Yeah, you and me both. I think we all are, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Unfortunately, I think that was a missed opportunity when it comes to the UFC's part in all of it, and I feel like Francis might regret that one day, but it is what it is. He's with PFL now, and he's interested in the boxing. So when it comes down to it, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Francis beat the brakes off of Tyson Fury. Fury got exposed. Shit. Helkulani. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, but I appreciate the interaction. You're damn right. Francis beat the brakes off of Tyson. Tyson got that fight because the boxing community could not let an MMA guy come in and win that fight against one of their best. So, of course, they gave it to Fury, but he definitely got exposed, and I know that he's probably going to be wondering. He's not going to be very strong when it comes to that Usyk fight. But, I mean, Fury's a badass. He's been through adversity before. Maybe he can overcome it again, but to almost get beaten by somebody in an MMA fighter that's never had any professional boxing matches, that's a tough one to handle, tough one to deal with. But back to this, UFC 288, Movsar Evloev versus Diego Lopez. Evloev with a unanimous decision win. Yan Xiaonan versus Jessica Andrade. This was one of those upsets that was crazy. Xiaonan with a round 1 KO over Andrade is usually the one knocking people out in the first round, and instead gets knocked out by Xiaonan in an exciting, fun fight. Then you get Bilal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns. Bilal looking like a world beater against Gilbert, and still just can't seem to get a title fight. But that was a unanimous win for Bilal. And then this wasn't even it. I'm thinking ahead here. But Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo. I think a lot of people were surprised by this fight because Sterling gets a split decision win over Henry Cejudo, and a lot of people were thinking Triple C will come out of retirement and just expose Aljamain because a lot of people don't respect Aljo. But unfortunately for Cejudo's the one that got manhandled, and Aljo he had every answer for everything. No, Henry Cejudo's not. Henry Cejudo returned already. He fought Aljo in his fight at UFC 288. This happened back in May. But, Aljo fought him for the title. They had Henry come back, fight for the title, and he got a loss. A split decision loss to Aljamain Sterling. I feel like it should have been a unanimous decision win for Aljo, but, Aljo doesn't get a lot of respect in this game. So, but he definitely beat Cejudo, And that was that for that card. Now we move on to June, UFC 289. Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana, and Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. This was a pretty fun card. I mean, for the most part, we had, let's see, undercard, not a whole lot going on. Diana Belbita, unanimous decision over Maria Oliveira. Not a ton in the undercard either. Imavov versus Chris Curtis was accidental clash ahead, so that was a no contest. Marc-Andre Barriel fought Eric Anders, unanimous decision win for Barreau. Dan Ige, unanimous decision win over Nate the Train Langler. A lot of decisions on this card. Mike Malott in the welterweight division versus Adam Fugit. Malott gets a submission by guillotine in the second round. Then we had Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. So this was a fun fight. This was an exciting one. Oliveira gets a TKO by punches in the first round over Beneil. And a lot of people were thinking Beneil Dariush might be able to edge it out over Charles because, you know, Charles Oliveira has his ups and downs, but Beneil's looking like a world beater. And then he faces Oliveira, former champ, and winds up losing in the first round by TKO. Then you had the big Amanda Nunes returning after a while being off against Irene Aldana, and gets the unanimous decision win. Basically just plays with her food. Irene Aldana just did not look like herself in this fight, couldn't do much against Nunes, and winds up losing. Amanda didn't even choose to finish it. She could have too, but she just played with her food, had a good time. You could tell she was having fun in there, and then gracefully retires afterwards. Double champ that she is. You know, of course she has to give up the belts, but it was a nice little thing with her and her family, her daughter and her wife in the octagon, and it was fun. It was a good way for her to go out. She said she has so many injuries that she doesn't even know how she kept fighting as long as she did. So it was good for her to go ahead and retire on top. There's not much more for her to do, and unfortunately she never fought Kayla Harrison. That was probably the only fight left that she didn't do, but Kayla wound up losing, and a lot of the heat came off that fight. So that's about it for that. 290 happened, first fight in July during International Fight Week. We had Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, and then Moreno versus Pantoja, two title fights on this card. Volkanovski going back down to his original weight class to defend his title. In the undercard of this one, we had let's see, Alonzo Menifield versus Jimmy Crute with that rematch after the majority draw. Menifield comes in with a submission by guillotine in the second round to win over Jimmy Crute. And then we had the big fight everybody was waiting on, Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price. Everyone was waiting to see Robbie Lawler fight again. Comes in, first round KO over Nico Price. Fucking fantastic. I was fucking hyped for this one. I was so happy to see Robbie Lawler. Unfortunately, it was the last, you know, it was the featured fight on the prelims, but he got his due, and winds up getting a win over Nico Price, and then retires gracefully afterwards. Another big name retiring, but he got inducted into the Hall of Fame during this weekend as well for one of it, and I'm sure he'll be in the Hall of Fame as a regular inductee down the road. But Robbie Lawler, one of the best to ever do it, one of the biggest names in the UFC, one of the best warriors, just had so many fucking wars, so many great fights, and so many great knockouts under his belt. And Robbie Lawler's always been one of my favorite fighters. Retires after a big KO win over Nico Price. Then we had Bo Nickel coming back in against fucking Valentine Woodburn, who nobody fucking really knows who he was. It was a weird matchup, but Bo Nickel put on a fucking show. 38 seconds into the first round, the exact time that it took Robbie Lawler to knock out Nico Price. The very next fight, 38 seconds again in the first round. Bo Nickel with a big KO win. That was fun. This was a great night for fights. This was a great card. I was in Vegas. I wasn't at the fights, but I was in Vegas for the Fan Expo, and I got to watch these on a crazy big screen next to a pool at Circa. Highly recommend it if you ever want to go check it out. fun night of fights, man. Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner, split decision win for Dan Hooker, but he survived a crazy head kick that he did block with his arm, winds up breaking his arm, I think in the second round or something. Might have even been in the first, but I think it was the second round. And still continues to fight and gets a split decision win over Jalen Turner. Just a goddamn savage, I swear. But unfortunately, he re-broke that mark and was not able to fight this past month in UFC 296. So that sucks. Hopefully, he's able to get that healed up correctly and completely, and then, make his way soon. Dricus du Plessis makes his way in again against Robert Whittaker. Should have been a great fight. Unfortunately, Robert Whittaker was just a little off this night, and Dricus was on his game 1,000%. He got that nose surgery, was able to breathe better apparently, and just comes out looking impressive. Gets the win over Robert Whittaker by TKO in the second round, and then we had that just viral in cage face off between Izzy and Dricus, and Izzy dropping the N-word but emotional about Dricus and the things that he said, and that's where that beef began. Then we had Alexandre Pantoja with his first title defense with his title fight against Brandon Moreno. Winds up beating Brandon Moreno in an upset because, well, not really, because Pantoja had beat Moreno before in the past. So this was the second fight between these two. It was a split decision win, so it was a pretty good fight all the way through, but Moreno just did not look like the fighter that fought Figueiredo. Maybe those wars took a toll on him, but Pantoja was able to come out and get a win and get the belt and against Brandon Moreno, and then has a weird after fight octagon interview where he's telling his dad, do you love me now? Are you proud of me now? It was crazy. But then we get to the main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, and Volk coming back down after losing to Makhachev to become a double champ, comes back down to defend his belt, winds up winning in the third round by TKO over Yair Rodriguez. Just an impressive win, good title defense for him, and that wraps up UFC 290. Moving on to UFC 291, the second fight in July. We got Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje for the BMF belt, and then we got Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight title, I believe. No, just a light heavyweight belt. I think this was their was it I don't even remember at this point. Let me see if I can find out. Light heavyweight. Shit, I don't remember. Yeah, I think this was for the title, because it was for the title. Yeah, what the hell am I thinking? Anyway, yeah, this was a good night of fights too. I mean, I guess it could have been better considering it's a BMF belt at the top, but yeah, just that fight alone was fun enough, and it was a great main event. I mean, you can't lose when you got Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Those two exciting fighters, always involved in some of the best fights out there, and I mean, there's no way around it. That's just again, one of the best fights you could make. I'm just trying to catch up here with my references because I kind of lost track and I was a little, but let's see what happened. On the undercard here, we had Miranda Maverick with a submission armbar win over Priscilla Cachoeira. Miranda Maverick just continues to look good. She's going to be a great contender coming soon. Roman Kopylov with a crazy head kick knockout over Claudio Ribeiro. And that was a contender for knockout of the year in a lot of people's that one kept coming up. Let's see, Gabriel Bonfim versus Trevin Giles, guillotine submission by Bonfim in the first round. Kevin Holland versus Michael Chiesa to start off the main event. The main card. Kevin Holland with yet another big win, a submission by Bravo choke over Michael Chiesa in the first round. Kevin Holland is just a beast, man. This dude just gets wins left and right. And again, I'm looking at the time thinking I said this was going to be shorter. Never. It's never shorter because there's a lot to cover. And then I start remembering. This is kind of why I wanted to do this. So I start remembering all the fights because I covered all of them. I've made a podcast about all of them. I went through all these pay-per-views. So, and I broke them all down and stuff. So it's just fun to go back and list, you know, just like start listing them out again, reviewing all of the fights. It's fun. And, you know, I might run a little later than usual, but it is what it is. We're almost there. 291 right now. We go to 296. Not too many more. But Kevin Holland with a big win over Michael Chiesa. Bobby Green with that submission over Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson was looking pretty good in this fight, but unfortunately just winds up with his 7th loss in a row and loses to Bobby Green by submission. And, you know, Bobby's not really the big submission artist, but you would think against Tony Ferguson, who is a big submission guy, and he winds up, you know, getting them in over Tony. And, you know, Tony, unfortunately, with yet another loss. And that streak continued, which is even more unfortunate. And we had Derek Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio Lima. First round, 33 seconds into the first round, Derek Lewis gets a TKO by punches. Not surprised. Rips off his shorts. Fucking runs around. You know, says some funny shit. It's hilarious. Derek Lewis is the best. But yes, round 1 TKO for him. Then you get Alex Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz. Pereira getting the split decision win over Blachowicz, who, you know, a lot of people thought there was no way that Pereira was gonna win this fight, considering his grappling and wrestling just doesn't seem to be up to par. But he hung with Jan, and Jan just couldn't do enough to get the win there. Split decision win for Pereira, and I believe that's when he became the light heavyweight champ. And then we had the BMF title, Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier, and yeah, this was a big KO win in the second round for Justin Gaethje by head kick. You know, he didn't knock him out cold, but it was a big head kick. Poirier couldn't recover. Poirier couldn't do anything to defend himself, and Justin Gaethje just proves to be one of the most violent guys in UFC. Gets that BMF belt, and he definitely embodies a bad motherfucker. So that does it for UFC 291. The second and last fight in July. We move into August, UFC T2, and this is Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. One of the other big fights people are anticipating because you know, a lot of people are high on Sean O'Malley and a lot of people hate Aljamain Sterling, so it's kind of the perfect fight to be able to, you know, have a favorite and root for someone to lose a belt or root for someone to, you know, win a belt for the first time. So this was definitely that fight card that, you know, had a lot of people's interest. And I mean, it was a pretty good fight as far as I'm concerned. I wasn't really sure who I was going for. I didn't have a true favorite because I do like Sean O'Malley and I do like Aljamain Sterling, even though a lot of people don't. So, but we also had Zhang Weili, or Weili Zhang, against Amanda Lemos. That was a deep fight. I mean, nothing really crazy happened in that fight, but this was the Ultimate Fighter Championship happening in the undercard of this. So we had Andre Petroski versus Gerald Mearshart, split decision win for Petroski. And then we had the Ultimate Fighter finale, Brad Katona versus Cody Gibson in the bantamweight division, and Brad Katona winds up becoming a 2-time Ultimate Fighter champion with a unanimous decision win over Cody Gibson in the bantamweight division. Then we had the finale for the lightweight division, Kurt Holobaugh versus Austin Hubbard. Holobaugh winds up getting a second round triangle submission over Hubbard to become the lightweight Ultimate Fighter champion. So that winds up ending the Ultimate Fighter there. Let's see. Who else? Oh, we also had Brad Tavares versus Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman with his return after that nasty leg break where he had so many issues, so many just surgeries and infections, and it almost seemed like he might not even get full function of his leg back, but winds up coming back finally, and unfortunately gets a unanimous decision loss against Brad Tavares. I mean, he looked pretty good in the fight, but Tavares just overwhelmed him and was better that night. Then we get to the main card, Chito Vera versus Pedro Munoz. Chito Vera didn't like himself in this fight, but still wanted to pull it off a unanimous decision win over Pedro Munoz. Mario Bautista versus Damon Blackshear. Batista gets a unanimous decision there. And then we got Ian Gary versus Neil Magny. And this fight had some heat on it because, you know, Neil Magny said something that triggered Ian Gary. And Ian Gary started calling him a child abuser and this other shit. And wound up trying to propel the fight and, you know, and just add fire to everything with all of that talk. But Ian Gary winds up getting a unanimous decision win over Neil Magny, which Gary was finishing people before. And he gets up against Magny, and, you know, he looked pretty good, but he wasn't able to knock him out and stuff like he had said he would. Then you get to the co-main event, Weili Zhang versus Amanda Lemos. That was a unanimous decision for Zhang. Nothing crazy happening there. Main event, Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling. And, man, Aljo, like, could have waited, didn't have to take this fight, went taking it anyway. Sean O'Malley being 16-1. Just fuck, he just looked good. He was overwhelming and just looked crisp and clean with his striking and his punches, and gets a second round TKO to become the new bantamweight UFC champion over Aljamain Sterling. And now Sterling is moving up a weight class. So, you know, there was the whole thing with Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili, and, you know, them not wanting to fight each other. Now that he's lost, it just seems inevitable that, you know, he moves up in weight and gives Merab, you know, a path to, you know, a championship fight for him. So we'll see what Sean is booked to fight. Oh my God, I forgot already. Who the fuck is he fighting? Anyway, he's fighting in March. So that'll be his first title defense. But that does it for UFC 292. Now we get UFC 293, happened in September. This was, oh man, this was upsetting. Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya. Adesanya, after that big KO win over Pereira, you know, to regain his middleweight championship. And unfortunately, things don't go his way when it comes to fighting Sean Strickland, and that's a whole different story. We'll get to that in a minute. But the undercard, not a whole lot going on the undercard of this one. I was hoping for this to be like just some crazy big fight card. We got Nasrat Haqparast versus Landon Quinones, unanimous decision win there. Jamie Mullarkey, unanimous decision win over John McDessie. Let's see. Carlos Oberg with a submission win over Dalwin Jung. And then the main card, Tyson Pedro versus Anton Turkalj. Tyson Pedro gets a KO win by punches in the first round there. That was a pretty good fight. This happened in Australia as well. Yep, Sydney. So you see a lot of the same names, you know. But we got Justin Tafa getting a big win over Austin Lane in the first round KO there. A lot of finishes on this card. And then we get to Manel Kape versus Felipe Dos Santos. That was the unanimous decision for Kape after he had a heated back and forth with Izzy Adesanya in the press conference. Alexander Volkov versus Tai Tuivasa. My boy Tai dropped a submission loss in the second round by Ezekiel choke to Alexander Volkov. Good on Volkov. That was a great choke, Ezekiel, on his part. But man, my boy Tai Tuivasa, he's such a streaky fighter, man. Win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. It sucks. I want to see him a lot. He's such a likable fighter. But then we get to the main event, which was highly upsetting because Sean Strickland, with an impressive showing against Israel Adesanya and unanimous decision win for him. There was no question about it. I'm pretty sure Sean wins like all 5 rounds, if not 4-1. But this was just did not look good for Izzy. It was unfortunate that he dropped the title to somebody like Sean Strickland. I don't like Sean very much. We all know that. But that does it for UFC 293. Now we're at 294. October, getting close here. We got the rematch between Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski, and Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. Couple pretty exciting fights there. Undercard, nothing crazy going on the undercard, except for Muhammad Mukayev with a submission by arm triangle choke in the flyweight division over Tim Elliott, third round submission. You got Said Nurmagomedov versus Muin Gafurov, submission by guillotine in the first round for Said. In the bantamweight division, Ikram Aliskerov versus Warley Alves, TKO, flying knee and punches. Aliskerov gets that win. That was an exciting one. Muhammad Ankalaev, Johnny Walker in a no contest. This was a weird one. Ankalaev gets an illegal knee, throws an illegal knee against Johnny Walker when he's down. And Walker looks like he's fine, but they get him up and stuff, and the doctor comes and checks him. The doctor's a fucking idiot and winds up asking Johnny if he knows what country he's in, and Johnny Walker just said the desert. So it's kind of shitty on his part, but you got to kind of be understanding about this stuff. So the doctor calls it off. That's it. No contest. Illegal knee. Fight's over. So that was disappointing because it was looking like it could have been a great fight. And we had Khamzat Chimaev finally coming back after a big layoff against Kamaru Usman. Gets a majority decision win. Nothing too crazy in that fight. Thought it'd be a better one, but it wasn't. But the main event ends in fireworks because Islam Makhachev shows and proves that there's no way Volkanovski's going to ever beat him. And Volk drops his second chance to become a double champ to Islam Makhachev, who just has number. And unfortunately, this one was way worse of a loss. It was a KO, a head kick KO by Islam to beat Volkanovski. So that was a damn shame. And Volk does not get to fight again, I'm sure, ever for double champ status unless it's way further down the road and not against Islam, because he just cannot beat Islam Makhachev. So then get to, okay, so I was wrong. Pereira did not win the light heavyweight championship when he fought Jan. I think that was to get to fighting for the championship. Yeah, because there was still in limbo what was going to happen with everything else. Yeah, I think they were fighting to be able to fight for the championship against Jamal Hill until he got injured. Because now we're at UFC 295, where Yuri Prohaska fights Pereira because Jamal Hill gets injured, and now it's a vacant title fight. And then we had Sergey Pavlovich versus Tommy Aspinall for the interim heavyweight title because Aspinall was supposed to fight. No, John Jones was supposed to fight, and then he got injured as well. So, no, fuck, I'm lost now. Holy shit. Anyway, who cares? But this was a pretty good card overall. Jamal Emmers TKO over Dennis Bazooka. Jared Gordon TKO over Marco Madsen in the first round. We had a majority draw. Borshev versus Sadikov. Lupi Godinez. What do we at? 295. Yeah, Lupi Godinez gets a split decision win over Tabitha Ricci. Diego Lopez with I'm sorry, I skipped one. Jared Gordon. Oh yeah, I said it, with a TKO over Marco Madsen in the first round. That was a fun fight. But yeah, then we get to the main card. Diego Lopez versus Pat Sabatini. Big win for Diego Lopez there. KO by punches in the first round, minute 30 in. Great way to start the card. Benoit Saint Denis with a big head kick KO over Matt Frivola, which Matt Frivola has been looking like a badass, but unfortunately gets stopped by Benoit Saint Denis by head kick, which is rough. Jessica Andrade bounces back from that loss earlier in the year, gets a TKO win over Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern did not look good in this fight. She just was all over the place. Didn't look like a MMA fighter, just looked like a jiu-jitsu fighter, reminiscent of the Ron Gracie fight. She did more than Ron Gracie did, but man, she just did not look good. And then you get the heavyweight interim title, Tom Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlovich. Aspinall looks like the world beater that he is. Gets a big KO win first round, a minute 9 seconds in. Fucking fun, great way to move into the light heavyweight title fight for the vacant title. Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prohaska, and everyone's thinking this is gonna be crazy because these two guys are fucking warriors. They're both weird dudes, but yeah, they both always have fun fights. So Yuri was out with an injury for a while. That's why Jamal Hill was fighting for the championship against Glover, because Yuri was supposed to fight Glover, and then got injured with a nasty shoulder injury. So then Jamal Hill wins, and then Jamal Hill gets injured. Crazy way that this light heavyweight division stacked up. But Pereira comes out with a big TKO win over Yuri in round 2. Just nasty elbows to the side of the head, and becomes, in just like his 7th fight, I think, or something, 4th fight, 5th fight, something like that, becomes a 2-division champion. Not simultaneously, obviously, but he's only had 1 fight in the light heavyweight division and gets to fight for the title and wins. Fucking crazy, man. Pereira's the real deal, and he should be having some fun fights coming up soon. Now get to UFC 296, which just happened this month. The main event, Leon Edwards versus bitch ass Colby Covington. And oh shit, I guess I need to change it. And then we had Pantoja versus Royal. Pantoja fighting to defend his belt. Undercard, Andre Fili with a big TKO win over Lucas Almeida in the first round. Then we had Ariane Lipsky, the Queen of Violence, with a nasty submission by armbar over Casey O'Neill. Cody Garbrandt looking good against Brian Kelleher with a fucking great KO win for him. That was a good fight. Cody looked good in that fight. First round KO. Brian Kelleher just couldn't handle the punch, man. He fucking got hit and just grabbed his face and fell flat on the ground. Then we had Irene Aldana versus Carol Rosa. This was a violent fucking fight of the night. Unanimous decision win for Aldana, and even though decisions sometimes seem like they're boring, this fight was bloody, this fight was violent, this fight was crazy. So this was definitely one of my favorite fights of the female division and overall. And you had Alonzo Menefield with a unanimous decision win for Dustin Jacoby. Then you get to one of the biggest knockouts of the year, one of the scariest knockouts of the year. Josh Emmett knocking out Bryce Mitchell in the first round by KO, and then Bryce Mitchell goes into convulsions after he gets knocked out. He got knocked out stiff, and then instead of coming to, he convulses, and they showed it. It was crazy. Bryce Mitchell was a short notice. It was a short notice fight for him coming in because there was an injury before that. Man, that was a crazy knockout. I don't know how that didn't win KO of the year by a lot of people. Patty Pimblett gets a fight over Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson suffers his 8th loss in a row. Tony just does not look good. Patty should have been better, but didn't do the best, but he still wins unanimous decision. Shavkat Rakhmonov becomes the first person to submit Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, gets a rear naked choke in the second round to get that win. That was an okay fight. Shavkat didn't look like himself because he had an injured foot. So that was kind of crazy that he was still able to beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and submit him for the first time ever. Alexandra Pantoja gets a unanimous decision win over Brandon Royval. Nothing too crazy there. And then we get to the final fight of 2023. Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Unanimous decision win for Leon Edwards. I wish it would have been a KO win. That would have been the best way to go. But Colby looked like shit. And that made me happy. He got the shit kicked out of his leg. And he said he tried to say it was the easiest fight of his life. He didn't get a scratch on him, but yet he walked out with fucking ice packs on his legs and marks on his face. So fuck Colby Covington. I'm glad he ended the year with a loss. I hope he continues to lose. Dana White said he looked old and slow. He sat out for 2 years because he's crying like a little bitch after he got sucker punched. You know, rightfully so, in the back of the head or whatever, but he got a tooth knocked out as well by Jorge Masvidal, and then tries to sue him, tries to fucking bring up felony charges against him, all this shit. fuck Colby Covington. I'm glad he lost. I hope he continues to lose. He should just go away and shut the fuck up. But that does it. Those are all the pay-per-views. I went longer than I wanted to. But guess what? That's a lot to cover. And like I said, I started remembering everything. And it was fun. It was fun to go over all of it. So thanks for joining in. And thanks for listening. And I hope you enjoyed the recap. And I hope it brought up some good memories for you. Everybody that was in the watch parties, thank you for being in there. Tenet Trend, my daughter, who's joined in a few watch parties this year. Clark likes to join in all the time. Josh, for the first time ever, my buddy Josh comes in and gets on the podcast and is involved in a watch party. The guys from Technically Unsound podcast always offering up their time and energy to join in on the watch parties as well. It's always fun. Don't forget to watch Technically Unsound podcast. We go live Sundays and Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Arizona time. Adjust for your time zone as you will. But yeah, Sundays and Tuesday nights we go live, and it's fun. If you want to hear me talk about something other than MMA, we get into a lot of different conversations, but we do talk about a lot of technical stuff, podcasting and stuff like that. It's fun. It's a good time. DJ Magix, DJ Tommy join me on that podcast. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow all my social media going on down there. I'm going to end this now because I'm tired of talking. But it was fun. Thank you. Great way to end the year. Good fucking recap. Thanks for all of the people in the chat. Mason Herring and Hail Kulani. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thank you guys for your input. Thank you guys for interacting. Don't forget to come back next Thursday. Watch again. Join in again. And yeah, hope you guys have a great new year. Did I put it up? No, I did not. I'm a dummy. But yeah, hope you guys have a great new year. There it is. Happy New Year from Going Around's podcast and GRP Entertainment. Thank you for all the support and more good, great new things to come this year. I'm hoping for a great year, hoping for some growth. Have a safe and happy new year. Enjoy it, everybody. I'm out of here. Thanks again. 2023 is over, and we out. Peace.